My wife and daughter ignored me for a whole month. I couldn't take it, so I walked away. 3 years later, she invited me to our daughter's wedding, and the moment they saw who I had become, everyone stopped and couldn't believe their eyes. I never thought the silence could be so deafening, so cutting. But after 31 days of being erased by my own wife and daughter, I walked out, only for Chloe to send me a wedding invitation 3 years later, triggering a reunion Olivia would regret forever. But let me back up, because you need to understand how a man can just vanish from his own home, while still sleeping in it every night. The air in our house had been slowly thickening for years, a quiet dread I somehow kept missing, despite my entire career being built on spotting catastrophe. I was 52, an aviation safety engineer for 26 years. My job? Designing fail-safe systems, backup protocols for commercial aircraft, making sure planes didn't fall out of the sky. I could spot every single failure point in a jet engine, but somehow, I was blind to the crash happening right there in my own marriage. The irony still stings. My last big contract, before everything imploded, was a 6-figure consulting gig for Lufthansa in Japan, designing their new safety protocols. I truly believed I was building our future, providing for my family. I thought that's what truly mattered. Olivia, my wife, had started pulling away about 2 years before the silence began. Little things, just subtle shifts, that I dismissed as normal wear and tear after 23 years. She stopped asking about my day, stopped laughing at my jokes, stopped reaching for my hand during TV. Our daughter, Chloe, was 24 and freshly engaged, so I rationalized it. Olivia was probably stressed, I thought. Wedding planning, work, life. It'll pass. I just kept working longer, bringing home bigger paychecks. I genuinely believed being a good provider was being a good husband. God, I was so wrong. Chloe, too, stopped seeking my advice. We used to talk about everything when she was little, but now? Every decision, from wedding venues to career moves, suddenly required only her mom's input. I tried to offer a suggestion, and she'd just smile politely, changing the subject. I told myself she was growing up, becoming independent. I was so naive. I didn't see I was being subtly phased out. As the wedding planning ramped up, I started noticing things. Long, hushed conversations that would abruptly stop the moment I walked in. They'd exchange glances, wait for me to leave, then pick right back up. I felt like a ghost, a stranger in my own home. Then, my 3-week trip to Japan ended. I came through the door, beaming, loaded with gifts, ready to tell them about a contract that could set us up for early retirement. Olivia barely glanced up from her phone, muttered, "Welcome back," and went right back to scrolling. Chloe, surrounded by wedding magazines at the kitchen table, didn't even look up. I just stood there, suitcase in hand, duty-free chocolates feeling heavy, like I'd walked into the wrong house entirely. That's when the act of ignoring began. Not the slow, passive drift of a tired marriage, but a deliberate, crushing erasure. I'd ask Olivia a question at dinner, and she'd answer Chloe, as if I hadn't spoken a word. I'd suggest something for the wedding, and they'd just keep talking over me, about whatever they'd been discussing. I'd walk into a room, and the conversation would just die. The wedding planning intensified, and so did their tactics. Vendor meetings scheduled behind my back. Decisions made on venues, catering, everything, without a word to me. When I tried to step in, Chloe would sigh, like I was some annoying child. "Dad, we've got it handled," she'd say, then turn back to Olivia. But of course, the bills still came to me. The invoices had my name. I was just the ATM, a walking wallet, with feelings they clearly didn't care about anymore. Then I noticed a group chat. One I wasn't in. Chloe's phone would buzz, she'd laugh, show it to Olivia, and they'd both erupt, while I just sat there, invisible. I asked once what was so funny, and Chloe just shrugged, "Oh, wedding stuff." But her eyes, they told me the joke was me. I'm not paranoid, I'm an engineer. I recognize patterns. And this pattern was screaming that I had become the problem they were actively trying to solve by pretending I simply didn't exist. For weeks into this chilling silence, I borrowed Chloe's laptop for my email. Mine was updating. She'd left Facebook open, and there it was, a group chat called Wedding Planning Central. Olivia, Chloe, Olivia's mom, Chloe's bridesmaids, 6 other people. Everyone but me. I scrolled back through weeks of messages, and my stomach just dropped. They weren't just planning a wedding. They were making jokes about me. How I was always trying to insert myself. How I was too sensitive. How I probably wouldn't even notice if they stopped talking to me completely. Then I saw Olivia's message. The one that changed everything. Give him another week. He'll crack. He won't last a month. Then we can deal with it however we want. This wasn't random. It was an experiment. A cold, calculated test to see how long I'd take it before I broke, before I gave them a reason to paint me as the villain. They were waiting for me to explode, so they could tell everyone I was unstable. I closed the laptop, sat there in the dark, and it hit me. My wife and daughter weren't just distant, they were actively rooting for my destruction. Something inside me just went cold. Quiet. The old me, the one always trying to fix things, to win back their love, he died right there in that chair. What replaced him was someone new. Someone who finally understood you don't beg people to see your value when they've already decided you have none. I had 9 days left until their little prediction. I wasn't about to give them the satisfaction of being right. I was going to disappear on my terms, in my own way, so completely they'd never see it coming. I didn't leave in a fit of rage, or on impulse. I left like an engineer, designing a system that couldn't fail. I had 9 days before their predicted breakdown, and I used every single one to craft my exit strategy. It was so perfect, they wouldn't know what hit them until I was already gone. First, the money. On day 2, I called my lawyer, Mark. I laid out the situation, no emotion, just facts and timelines. We set up a trust, completely legal, completely untouchable. 70% of our liquid assets moved into protected accounts, my pension and retirement funds locked down. The wedding fund? That stayed right where it was. Chloe was still my daughter, even if she'd forgotten it. I left enough in the joint account to cover 3 months of bills. I wasn't trying to destroy them financially. I was just making sure they couldn't destroy me. Next came the hardest part, the one that would have shattered the old me. I had a son, Ryan, from my first marriage. A messy ending when I was 26. He's 30 now, lives in Denver, works in tech. Olivia knew I'd been married before, but I'd never told her about Ryan. By the time we got serious, he was already 18, living his own life, and it just never came up. That omission, that quiet secret, was about to become my greatest asset. On day 8, I called Ryan. Told him everything. He listened, silent, not interrupting. When I finished, there was a long pause. Then he asked, "Dad, what do you need from me?" I almost broke down right then. Someone was finally asking what I needed, instead of just taking. I explained the trust, naming him secondary beneficiary on everything. He agreed without hesitation. Olivia and Chloe had no idea Ryan existed, which meant they had no idea where my assets were truly going. Day 9 arrived. I was ready. I'd packed one bag, transferred funds to a new, secret bank account, and arranged a storage unit for the few things that genuinely mattered. Chloe's baby photos, my father's watch, some books. Everything else could stay. I set my alarm for 4:30 a.m., when the house would be quietest, my exit cleanest. I didn't sleep a wink. I lay next to Olivia, listening to her breathe, feeling absolutely nothing. No love. No hate. No regret. Just a cold, calculated focus on timing and logistics. At 4:30, I got up, dressed quietly, and walked through the house one last time. My keys on the kitchen counter. My credit card, cut into pieces, next to them. A half-full glass of wine on the table. Small, symbolic gestures to tell them I'd made a choice, not had a breakdown. At exactly 4:47 a.m., I walked out that front door and closed it silently behind me. No note. What was there left to say? I drove to a hotel near the airport, checked in under my own name. I wasn't hiding. Then I waited. How long until they noticed? 18 hours. Olivia called once, no voicemail. Chloe texted, "Where are you?" I ignored both. I wanted them to sit in that silence, the same way they'd forced me to sit in it for 31 days. Olivia tried to spin it as a mental breakdown on my part, posting cryptic messages on social media about supporting each other through difficult times. Chloe just kept planning her wedding, like nothing had happened. Pictures of dress shopping, cake tasting. Not a single mention of me. They erased me from their narrative completely, just as I'd expected. What they didn't expect was how thoroughly I'd protected myself, making sure they couldn't touch anything that truly mattered. 2 months later, Olivia's lawyer contacted Mark, demanding access to my pension and retirement accounts. Mark shut them down in about 15 minutes, with airtight documentation of the trust. 3 months. They tried to have me declared legally dead, so Chloe could access my life insurance. That failed even faster. I was very much alive, and making sure people knew it. 6 months in, Olivia tried a new tactic. She called from Chloe's phone, thinking I'd answer for my daughter. And I did. Chloe was still my child, after all. Olivia got on the line immediately. "We need to talk about your responsibilities," she said, as if I were a teenager who'd missed curfew. I told her all my responsibilities had been met. The wedding fund was full. The bills were paid through our separation date. Anything else? Not my problem anymore. She started to argue. I just hung up. The power in that moment, it was incredible. Meanwhile, I'd started consulting independently. I was making more money than I ever had working full-time. My downtown apartment felt more like home than that big house ever did. The wedding planning chugged along without me. I watched from a distance, through mutual friends who just couldn't believe what they were seeing. My name disappeared from the wedding website. The program said Chloe would be given away by her mother. They acted like I'd never even existed. Olivia spun a story. I'd abandoned them, chosen work over family, was selfish and cold. Some people bought it. Most who actually knew me didn't. Then, about 8 months after I left, something shifted. A photo of me at an engineering conference ended up online. Just a casual shot, talking to colleagues, smiling. I looked healthy. Successful. Calm. I looked like someone who'd made the right choice. That photo somehow made its way back to Olivia. And suddenly, her narrative started to crack. People began asking questions. Why would a man who looked that stable supposedly have a breakdown? Olivia's story just stopped making sense. She knew it. Here's what I didn't know then. Chloe had actually called off her wedding about 4 months after I left. She told people it was mutual, that she and her fiancé had just grown apart. But the truth was, it was more complicated. About a year after I disappeared, she met someone new, David, who worked in aerospace consulting. They dated 6 months, then got engaged. Which meant by the time my invitation arrived, almost 3 full years had passed since I walked out that door at 4:47 a.m. 2.5 years in, I was casually dating Isabella, a structural engineer. She actually listened when I talked, thought my job was fascinating, instead of just tolerating it. Ryan and I grew closer. Dinner once a month, real conversations, not just surface-level updates. I built a life that felt authentic, chosen, not obligatory or draining. Olivia and Chloe faded from my daily thoughts. They were people from my past, not open wounds in my present. Then, 3 weeks before Chloe's wedding, an invitation landed at my apartment. Heavy cardstock, elegant printing. Chloe and David's names at the top. Inside was a handwritten note, in her handwriting, "Dad, I need you to walk me down the aisle. Please, we need to talk before the wedding. Please call me." I stared at it for an hour, trying to figure out what game this was. Then I picked up the phone. Called my daughter for the first time in almost 3 years. And what she told me, it changed everything I thought I knew about how this story would end. Chloe answered on the first ring, like she'd been holding her phone, waiting. Her voice cracked immediately, a torrent of apologies pouring out before I could even say hello. "I'm sorry. I was wrong, please let me explain." That hit me harder than 3 years of silence ever could. I told her to slow down, to breathe. And she did. Then, she told me everything. Her fiancé, David, worked at an aerospace consulting firm. He'd partnered with my new company on 2 projects over the past year. He knew exactly who I was, long before he met Chloe. My industry reputation, the trust, Ryan, everything I'd built after I left. On their second date, when Chloe told him her last name, he went quiet. Asked if her father was the aviation safety engineer who designed backup protocols for that big recertification project. She'd said yes, probably expecting him to be impressed. Instead, he'd asked why she never mentioned me. And why her mom told everyone I'd abandoned them. David had done his research. That's what good engineers do. He talked to people who knew me, uncovered the real story of how I'd been treated, why I left. He'd confronted Chloe, with proof that Olivia's narrative was a complete fabrication. Chloe confessed she'd spent 6 months in therapy, trying to process the fact that she'd helped mistreat her own father, for no reason other than her mom had convinced her it was normal. The group chat still haunted her, she said. She couldn't believe she'd participated in something so cruel. She'd been trying to call me for over a year, she cried, but didn't think I could ever forgive her. I let her finish. Then I asked the only question that truly mattered, "Does your mother know you invited me?" Chloe went silent for a long moment. "No," she finally whispered. Olivia thought Chloe was walking down the aisle alone. This was going to be a complete surprise. I smiled. A genuine smile, for the first time in that conversation. "I'll be there," I told her. The wedding was at an elegant hotel downtown, marble floors, crystal chandeliers. I arrived 2 hours early, through a side entrance Chloe arranged. We met in a private room, away from the guests. She was already in her dress. When she saw me, she started crying, careful not to ruin her makeup, but completely unable to hold it in. We talked for almost an hour. About everything. How she'd realized too late that Olivia had manipulated her for years. How David showed her what a real partnership looked like. How she desperately wanted to do better, be better, and earn back the relationship she'd thrown away. I told her I appreciated the honesty. But forgiveness? That was going to take time. Showing up today didn't erase 3 years of being erased. She nodded, said she understood, and would do whatever it took, for however long it took. About 20 minutes before the ceremony, David walked in. He shook my hand with genuine respect, thanked me for coming. He'd told Chloe up front he wouldn't marry her unless she made things right with me first. He wasn't about to build their marriage on the wreckage of someone else's destroyed relationship. I liked him instantly. Direct. Honest. Saw right through the nonsense. Exactly the kind of person Chloe needed. He also let slip something else. He'd been subtly steering contracts toward my consulting firm. He believed in my work, wanted to support me, even before any of this reconciliation began. That level of integrity? That meant something. The ceremony began. I waited in the back hallway, listening to the guests settle, the music start, the officiants welcome. Then, it was time. Chloe took my arm. We walked to the entrance of the main hall. The doors opened. And when everyone saw me standing there with my daughter, the entire room went silent. Olivia sat in the front row. Her face shifted from confused to shocked to absolutely horrified, all in about 3 seconds. Next to her sat Ryan. In a suit I'd bought him. My son. The one nobody in that room, except David, knew existed. Olivia's eyes darted from me to Ryan, then back to me. And I watched her realize, in real time, that everything she thought she knew was wrong. We walked down the aisle in complete silence, save for the music. Every single step felt like vindication. Proof that you cannot erase someone who simply refuses to be erased. I handed Chloe to David, shook his hand, and took my seat next to Ryan in the second row. Olivia kept turning, staring at us. I just looked straight ahead, as if she wasn't even there. Giving her the exact same treatment she'd given me for 31 days, almost 3 years ago. The ceremony was beautiful. Chloe looked genuinely happy. I felt something close to peace, for the first time in years. The reception, that's where everything truly fell apart for Olivia. She cornered me near the bar, her mother right behind her. Before Olivia could even start whatever speech she'd prepared, her own mother cut her off. Olivia, stop. Just stop, her mom said. I watched Olivia's face crumble. Even her own mother was done with the lies. Olivia just fell apart. Right there. In front of everyone. Crying, making excuses, trying to explain why she'd done what she'd done. But nobody was listening. The truth was out. Her narrative had completely crumbled. She'd spent 3 years playing the victim, and now everyone saw her for the villain she'd been all along. I didn't gloat. I didn't argue. I just stood there, calmly, as she spiraled. Because the best revenge truly is becoming unreachable, while they're still trying to drag you down. I left the reception early, with Ryan and Isabella. Isabella, my date, who Olivia had stared at like she couldn't comprehend I'd actually moved on. We went to dinner downtown. Talked about normal things, work, travel, Ryan's latest tech project. It felt good to be with people who genuinely wanted me there. Who saw my value beyond what I could provide, fix, or tolerate. Chloe texted me later that night, thanking me again, asking if we could get coffee. I said yes. She'd earned that chance, by actually doing the work to change. 6 months after the wedding, Chloe met the conditions of the trust I'd set up, gaining access to her inheritance. She used it to start her own business, building true independence from her mother. We have coffee once a month now. Our relationship is different, yes, but it's real. Olivia tried reaching out a few times, but I never responded. Some bridges just aren't meant to be rebuilt. They're meant to stay burned, a reminder of what happens when you treat people like they're disposable. Isabella and I got married last year. Small ceremony, just Ryan, Chloe, and a few close friends. Nobody was erased. Nobody was ignored. Nobody had to prove their worth just to be treated with basic human decency. I could end this story by saying, I forgave everyone, and we all lived happily ever after. But that's not real life. Some people don't deserve second chances, and some damage is permanent. But the people who put in the work to grow, to change, to do better, those people deserve grace. Chloe got hers. Olivia never will. And I am completely, utterly fine with that. Because the best part about disappearing and rebuilding your life isn't the revenge. It's the profound peace you find when you finally stop letting the wrong people define your worth. What would you have done if you were in my shoes?